if they begin work on site within 18 months of getting planning permission. The plans are due to be announced in the budget 2015, according to the newspaper, and it will apparently contain a package of measures aimed at tackling the lack of supply. Managing Director at Onlinetradesmen.ie, Ted Laverty's on the line. Ted Laverty, this is interesting, but does it not mean the tax is going to rise substantially if within 18 months of the building work nothing is happening? Is it an incentive or a threat?
Well, I mean, it sounds a little bit like a threat, but I mean, it obviously gives the incentive to try and tackle the issue with the housing problem ASAP. So, you know, I guess you can perceive it either way. I mean, for me, Jonathan, there is a bigger issue there in relation to funding that's available for these developers. So, you know, I guess the carrot and stick approach, you know, that's one thing, but you can't get blood out of a stone if these developers don't have the finances to actually start development. Well, that's a bigger issue.
Isn't there a possibility that the banks will see this now as being what it is, which is an incentive to build, and that should free up credit if they know that there's going to be something quite literally concrete at the end?
Well, listen, I tell you, if you're surmising that banks will use logic to get lending again, well, you know, you may have a better crystal ball than I do. I mean, it hasn't worked in the SME sector, and I think it's very difficult for anybody to get money out of banks at the moment. What we're kind of hearing on the ground is that developers, you know, they're I guess once bitten, twice shy in terms of actually ploughing in and trying to finance development. Those that have money, I guess, are being cautious. Those that don't are looking at the funding arrangements that they'd have to set with third parties and the amount of interest that they'd have to pay on those. And in some cases, they're saying it's just not worth the risk. Okay, well, they're clearly trying to put the horse before the cart here. But even if this all does happen and it's agreed and the money is put in place, do we have the physical personnel to start building all of these houses? The CIF saying 10,000 units likely to be built this year alone. Do we have enough tradesmen in the country to meet the demand? Well, I mean, you know, what's happened, we've been around since 2007, so we've kind of seen, you know, an oversupply situation down to kind of where it is now in terms of that there are just about enough tradespeople in the country to meet demand. So obviously if there is a massive incentive and a massive expansion of the construction sector, we don't believe that there are going to be the qualified and calibre tradespeople available to pull off the work. A lot of people have fled for far-flung shores, Australia, Canada, Middle East, etc. Really, we need to be a bit kind of, I guess, more proactive about getting them back. It's all very well putting the incentives in place, as you say, but if we don't have the people on the ground to fulfil it, well, then we're going nowhere. But is the incentive there to bring those guys back? I mean, a lot of them, if they're working in some countries, you mentioned, I think, was it Doha, they're working there tax-free, aren't they? Well, there are. I mean, there's all sorts of incentives, you know. I mean, there's guys working tax-free. There's people working in mines and big developments in Australia and in Canada and getting, you know, over 200 grand a year for, you know, for the work that they do. Very, very hard to compete. I mean, look, you know, Irish fellas, you know, probably the biggest incentive is the mammy's apron strings, you know, coming back to that. I believe that people, you know, in the Irish kind of psyche or whatever, that you do want to come back if all things are right on the ground, if there's guarantees in place. But, you know, at the moment, it's just talk, you know. Okay. You know. But is there confidence in the sector that this is at least a bit of momentum, that we're heading in the right direction after what has been, let's face it, 6 years of abysmal failure in the industry? Absolutely. Look, I mean, you know, we're a million miles away from where we were 24 months ago. You know, tradespeople have a spring in their step. They believe that, you know, things are going in the right direction. It's nothing like what it was, and that's no bad thing, I don't believe. But it's, you know, it's certainly approaching that. What we probably need to do, Jonathan, my suggestion is that we need to proactively target all these young apprentices and young tradespeople that have gone to far-flung shores to try and get them back. You know, we alone have a database of thousands of tradespeople, you know, since before the financial crisis. So, you know, we would be able to, if there was an incentive there, target some of them, if there were guarantees of work, guarantees of salary levels, you know, for a period of time, try and target them, try and get them back. You know, and I think that's probably what the government needs to do. OK, Ted Laverty, we'll leave it there, Managing Director at Onlinetradesmen.ie. Thank you for joining us on News Talk Lunchtime. Still to come, traffic seems to be back